Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushai, Ba'ashem, Kodash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well and teach well. And peace and blessings to the elect of Israel out there that's pushing this word in all truth and sincerity. I'm going to bring out a little story about Tecumseh and his brother Tinsquatawa, known as the Prophet. All right. Um, but basically, Tecumseh and his brother, formed a confederacy of which consisted of all the Native American tribes to fight against the westward expansion of the so-called white man, the self-proclaimed white man, I should say. Um, and But this is like one of his famous quotes. It says, "The only way to stop this evil white settlement of the Indians' land is for all the red men to unite in claiming a common and equal right in the land as it was at first and should be now. For it never was divided, but belongs to all. Sell a country. Why not sell the air, the clouds, the great sea, as well as the earth? Did not the Great Spirit, Master of life, which that's what they call the Most High, make them all for the use of His children?" And he's on point with that. Because if Esau could, he'd make a monopoly of every single natural resource there is, and which he does, man. You have to pay a water bill, an electricity bill, a light bill, so on and so forth, man. He has a monopoly over all the, even when you buy a property, you buy land, you still have to pay tax on it. So, I mean, those practices are still in today. And to this day, those Native Americans are pushed to reservations, all right? They're still stepped on all over, man. And they're the Gadites, all right? Which I'm going to prove in a second, but I want to get this story first. Let's see. I'll just read. Yeah, it says, in his quest, Tecumseh received assistance from his younger brother, Tinsquatawa, known as the Prophet. Tinsquatawa believed that the American Indians had to end their reliance on American goods, such as alcohol, iron, cookware, and guns. The Indians had angered the Master of Life by becoming dependent on these items. If the American Indians forsook them, the Master of Life would reward his followers by driving the Americans from their land. Many Indians found the Prophet's message appealing and began to congregate at his village, Prophetstown, in the Indiana Territory. Hey, and his brother was on point with that. The Prophet was on point with that because the scriptures say, never trust thine enemy. And, over and over, Yahweh made it clear not to make covenants with the heathen. Alright? This is Ecclesiasticus 12 and 10. "Never trust thine enemy, for like as iron rusteth, so is his wickedness. Though he humble himself and go crouching, yet take good heed and beware of him, and thou shalt be unto him as if thou hadst wiped a looking-glass. And thou shalt know that his rust hath not been altogether wiped away." And that's something that Esau did when he came over here to America. He broke, hundreds and hundreds of treaties that he made with the Native Americans. All right. Although he came in that peaceful, deceitful, peaceful spirit, and one Gad's, remorse, Esau would come around and stab them in the back and take more of their land over and over and over again until they got all the way to California and started pushing the Issacharites down into Mexico. All right. says Tecumseh used his brother's influence to convince the American Indians to put aside their traditional differences and unite together against the whites. He also visited many tribes west of the Appalachian Mountains and east of the Mississippi River, seeking additional support for his confederation. Tecumseh was a firm believer that more people translated into more power. While most tribes listened to Tecumseh's proposal, many rejected his ideals. This was especially true of Indians in modern day Tennessee, Georgia, and Mississippi, because hey, that kind of confirms my belief that, there's a lot of um, Gadites that look like the so called white man, all right, because your spirit is determined by your father's lineage, right? And what would happen is that these Native Americans, these Gadites, Israelites, would lay down with these so-called white women, especially in these states right here, right? It says they didn't depart from their ways. They rejected Tecumseh. They're like, man, this way of living is, quite all right. It says many of the prophet's followers embraced white products and customs. Hey, and that's where you get, that term Gentile from. You know, when the scriptures use that word Gentile, it either refers to uh, people outside of Israel, or it refers to Israelites that have embraced, the customs of the heathens. All right, said they did not want to lose access to these goods. Tecumseh had more success in Ohio, Kentucky, and the Indiana Territory, areas that whites had been attempting to settle since before the French and Indian War. And then, of course, later after that war, they ended up, history. Let's see. Yeah, I'll just skip down to the end. It says they were unwilling to assist Tecumseh in forming the Confederation. Tecumseh did try to recreate his Confederacy, but he had only limited success. Tecumseh's quest formally ended in 1813 with his death at the Battle of the Thames in the War of 1812. Because after he lost the war against William Henry Harrison, he fought in the French and Indian War, and he died in the French and Indian War. But before he died, he put a curse uh, on the presidents being elected every 20 years. Yeah, I think that's right. Every year that ended with a zero, I think was like the curse. Uh, It says in 1811, Tecumseh's force attacked Harrison's army in the Battle of Tippecanoe. Yeah, because you can look up the Curse of Tecumseh or Curse of Tippecanoe and it'll pop up, earning Harrison fame and the nickname Old Tippecanoe. And an account of the aftermath of the battle, Tecumseh's brother Tenskwatawa, it was his brother that said a curse, supposedly said a curse against Harrison. This is the basis of the curse legend, even though it was Richard Mentor Johnson who was said to be the man who killed Tecumseh. And basically, the curse was, every president that was elected every 20 years would die in his election, and that stayed true all the way up until Ronald Ronald Reagan, which there was an assassination attempt on both of these presidents, but it never fell through. And if you have the eye to see it, hey, the prophets started coming on the scene again, late 60s and 70s, and in the 70s. So, hey, that curse. Well, I'll get this scripture. Yeah, Genesis 49:19. Gad, a troop shall overcome him, but he shall overcome at the last. And this story shows that how the Gadites were overcome. A troop overcame them. The so-called white man known as Esau Edom has destroyed their heritage, has taken, their Hebrew uh, customs away from them, even though that they were going off beforehand. But, a troop overcame them. But says, but he shall overcome at the last. And, during, late 60s and in the 70s, the prophets started coming on the scene. So that's them starting to overcome them. So this curse doesn't really have to, take into place, because a new curse is being set on. All right, the prophets of old are being risen back. All right, and to further prove that Gad are the North American Indians, let's go to 2nd Ezra 13. Yeah, let's see. Because when you read into this chapter, it talks about a peaceable multitude gathered unto him. So 2nd Ezra 13 and 39, I'll start here. And whereas thou sawest that he gathered another peaceable multitude unto him, those are the 10 tribes which were carried away prisoners out of their own land in the time of Hosea the king, whom Salmanasar the king of Assyria led away captive, and he carried them over the waters, and came they into another land. But they took this counsel among themselves, that they would leave the multitude of the heathen, and go forth into a further country where never mankind dwelt. All right, that they might there keep their statutes, which they never kept in their own land. So after the Assyrian captivity, the 10 tribes, the northern tribes of Israel, they took counsel among themselves and said, you know what, let's go to a land where no man has dwelt, so we can keep our customs there. It says, and they entered into the Euphrates by the narrow places of the river. For the Most High then showed signs for them, and held still the flood till they were passed over. For through that country there was a great way to go, namely a year and a half, and the same region is called Arsareth. All right, and that word Arsareth means far away land, and it said namely it took them a year and a half. And if you go through the river of Euphrates, you'll come out, south of, the Middle East and on the east side of Africa. So they went around Cape Horn and, followed up and went over to the Americas, all right? And then to further prove that, let's go to Isaiah 49 and 12. Right, let's get it in the blue letter. Because when you read this chapter, it's talking about, I'll start at 6 and then I'll jump down. It says, and he said, it is a light thing that thou shouldest be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob, the tribes of Israel, and to restore restore the preserved of Israel. I will also give thee for a light to the Gentiles, that thou mayest be my salvation unto the end of the earth. All right. Now that Gentiles is talking about Israelite foreigners, Israelites that have been scattered among the other nations, who over time started picking up on their traditions, so that we would be a light unto them and show them that, hey, y'all are actually Israelites, but not the heathens, all right? You have to understand that this Bible is only for Israelites. All right, but jumping down to verse 12, it says, behold, these shall come from far, and lo, these from the north and from the west, and these from the land of Sinim. Now let's look up that word Sinim. All right, it says a people living at the extremity of the known world. All right, and extremity is like the furthest point or limit of something. Now if you just think logically, now you read it, it said, as far north, it says, and lo, it's like it says, and lo, these from the north and from the west, and these from the land of Sinim. Now if you think of the most furthest point from the Middle East, right? From Israel, because that's where Isaiah was. Uh, he was in Judea, all right? Now, if you think furthest west and north from that point, you're gonna think of North America. But you see this devil man, he which doesn't even make any sense. It says may be identified with the inhabitants of southern China. China is fucking east of Israel, my dude. So that it's not talking about China. But the reason why he slid that in there is because Christianity isn't in China. But the Bible doesn't talk about anything about Christianity. Because the Bible is for is a heritage, man, and it's only for Israelites, not for no gooks in China, all right? Moab. Now you do have Israelites that are scattered in there. That's why the scriptures say this. Jeremiah 23:7. Therefore, behold, the days cometh, saith the Lord, that they shall no more say, the Lord liveth, which brought up the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt. But the Lord liveth, which brought up and which led the seed of the house of Israel out of the north country, just talking about America, and from all countries whither I had driven them. We're just talking about all, any little island or big country, across the whole earth, all right? Because part of the curses of Deuteronomy 28th chapter that was put on Israel for breaking the laws, statutes, and commandments, part of those curses was being scattered to the four ends of the earth, all right? But the main deliverance is going to be here in America, which is known as Babylon the Great, spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, so on and so forth. It says, and from all countries whither I had driven them, and they shall dwell in their own land. Alright? But that's the point. A troop, I'm just going to highlight this again. A troop shall overcome Gad, but he shall overcome at the end. Alright? So it's time for you Gadites to wake up to your true nationality, man. That you're a Hebrew Israelite. Whether your lineage goes back, if you're a so-called white man and your lineage goes back to Gad, or if you're a dark-skinned man, or if you look just like this guy. If your father's lineage goes back to a so-called Native American, then, you're most likely a Gadite. Alright? So with that, I hope this video was edifying, and shalom.